Something has got to happen because we can no longer go down the path that we're going down. This country won't last another 6 months. This country won't last another 12 months if something doesn't happen. So it's time to flip the switch. It's time to get involved. It's time to move the line forward. And if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. So I don't care what flip the switch is. I don't care if that means that all of this nonsense is nonsense, or if some of it's true. All right. Welcome. Good evening. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, warriors, world patriots, my fellow Americans. My name is Mike. I'm the host of Liberty Warrior. Give me liberty or give me death. When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes our duty. And I can't believe that more than I do at this moment in time, as tyranny is just running rampant, not only in this country, but in Canada and elsewhere. It is our duty to stand up to it, folks. If we do not, no one else will. Today is Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022. Is there a collapse on the horizon? I don't know. I've got Andy in the waiting room, and we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about what he sees going on in the economy. We're going to talk We're going to talk silver like we always do with Andy and Miles Franklin. If you guys want to find out any more information, check them out at info@milesfranklin.com. And I don't know. I've been seeing some things kind of popping up, and that's why I wanted to talk to Andy tonight. I wanted to ask him his thoughts on it because what I've seen in the last 24 hours is with the truckers that are uniting right now. It's causing a lot more supply chain issues, even deeper than before with all of the offshore container ships. You know, we're struggling with that, and now with the other stuff that's going on with the Patriot movement, I'm hearing talk that it's going to be hard to get anything coming into this country, especially from Canada, and it's going to affect the rest of the world. And now we have Israel that is they're pushing a trucker unite. I believe Australia has something going on over there as well. Here in America, they're uniting. So what does that mean for the rest of us here in America? What does that mean for our Canadian brothers and sisters? What does it mean for our Mexican brothers and sisters south of the border? I don't know. I'd like to know what Andy's opinion is on it. I'd like to know what Andy's seeing in the financial realm. We'll talk, I'm sure, inflation, because, again, the Biden administration is pushing hard on Russia right now, and they're telling us, the Biden administration is telling us, buckle up and get ready, because they're not going to allow Putin to push his pipeline through. They're talking sanctions possibly. They've sent troops over, and this could affect us with more inflation. Do I think we're going to war? Do I think a bunch of other stuff might pop off? You know, I don't know about that. All I know is what I see, and what I see is a path to some really hard times for us. And I just want people to pay attention. I want people to gather as much information as they possibly can, so that they can make an educated decision for themselves and their family. And so that's what I got Andy on for tonight, is just to talk about a bunch of this stuff, and see if he can clue us in on anything. So before I bring Andy in, I'm going to just go ahead and open the show in prayer. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Really appreciate it. Dear Heavenly Father, just come to you this evening, Lord. Thank you for another blessed day. Thank you for the opportunity for us to gather together with Andy and with the rest of the team and all the viewers tonight, just to hear what Andy has to say. Maybe he can help us all with some information to protect ourselves and just keep our families safe, as we may be heading into places that are going to be a tough situation for us. And so, Lord, I just ask that the ears that need to hear will hear, and we'll all get along tonight and just have a good conversation. And I thank you for that, and thank you for all that you do for us in your son's precious name. Amen. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring Andy in. Good evening, Andy. How are you, brother?
Mike, I'm good, my man. How about yourself?
You know what? It's been a good day. I built a ramp for my mother here on my house, so my mom can get up, not have to get up over the stairs. So Dad and I did that this afternoon, and my cousin showed up and helped us. Just getting some things done around the house here, but I've had a pretty good day. How about in your neck of the woods there in Florida? Because I woke up this morning, it was -12, and I'm sure you had probably similar temperatures there in Florida.
It builds character, right? That's what I always used to tell myself, Mike. I mean, I lived in Minnesota for 50 years, and I
Yeah.
always used to tell myself it built character, made you tough, kept the riffraff out. I see Minnesota has the highest level of increase of carjackings in the country, so I don't think it keeps the riffraff out. And in terms of character, you know what? I was wrong. It doesn't build character, and it certainly. I don't know what it is. In fact, when you come to a place like Florida, where it's warm, the quality of life, the politics, the taxes, everything just seems to be a little bit more logical. And that's what I think is missing in a place like Minnesota, logic. And in particular, it filters on down from the politicians who make ridiculous decisions. And so it's good here in Florida, man. I welcome anyone to who was having a hard time with the way things are going to vote with their feet. That's what I did. I voted with my feet and I left. And it's the best decision I've ever made. Really, truly, best decision I ever made. And politicians who think that they can charge 10.5% income tax, let the city burn down, defund the police, make a city that was once an amazing place to be a kid, to grow up, to raise a family, turn into really a scary place. It's crazy world we live in, Mike. Absolutely. So it's all good. I don't want to rip too much on Minnesota. I always love it, but sad to see what's happened to some of the cities in this country.
Yeah. You know, since you bring that up about how the place you once loved and is still dear and near to your heart has gone through some really hard times with that type of nonsense. And if you look back at it, nothing happened. Nobody really got any kind of charges brought up on charges. Nobody went to court. Nobody was found guilty. Nobody was sentenced. Nothing happened, and yet the burden falls on the taxpayers because all of that destruction. Now the federal government is going to send them money and bail them out. And guess where that money comes from? It comes from my paycheck. It comes from your paycheck. It comes from all of our paychecks. But yet, when patriots stand up, when patriots do nothing but just ask for a seat at the table, ask to be heard, to stand up for our liberties, to stand up for our rights, to stand up for our freedoms, then the federal government comes in and they start freezing GoFundMe accounts. They start freezing assets. They start freezing bank accounts. They shut down ATMs. They even go as far as rounding up vehicles and even talk of selling those vehicles because they don't want these people to come back. So to go from the summer of love where anything goes, doesn't matter, you know, occupy 6 square blocks in Seattle or Portland or wherever it was at, to now where truckers are going in to Ottawa and now truckers are uniting here in America. It's a night and day difference, and what a cabal we live in.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, can I say it's fucked up? Is that bad to say? Because it really is. I
It
mean,
is.
when they were burning down Minneapolis, CNN was saying it was a peaceful protest. When you have a bunch of peaceful patriots standing up for their rights, they're vilified. Let's talk about that for a minute, Mike.
Okay, go ahead.
I think that one of the things I've always tried to do, I think in order to be good in business, you have to be objective. To be able to be to be an adult, you have to be objective and you have to look at other people's viewpoints. I think the best way to resolve an argument is put yourself in the place of the opposite party. Now let's play devil's advocate for a minute. If I could find anything that wasn't fault with Trudeau and his actions, it would be that you had, 100 people, 200 people, however many truckers there were, blocking international commerce, costing both U.S. and Canadian corporations north of $50 million a day. That's wrong. And if anything, that would be what I would find fault in. Where I am really concerned with the actions of Trudeau and the Canadian government is usurping the rule of law, the due process, not giving these people their day in court as what's supposed to be. If laws are broken, you're supposed to follow the rule of law. You're supposed to get due process, and all of this was usurped with an archaic emergency act that allows the government, in this case, to seize assets unilaterally. This was a fascist act by a democratic government. It's very concerning, to say the least. And I think that this is reeks of desperation. I would like to hope that the Canadian people see Trudeau for what he is and throw his ass out. But these are the reasons why I've been talking to people about owning precious metals as wealth. You know, they talk about cryptocurrencies being so secure, yet wallets are frozen. They talk about this husband and wife who siphoned off a couple $1 billion worth of crypto, yet the FBI was able to track it all the way to them. You know, I go back to the white paper written by the NSA on cryptocurrency, and the hashtag that Bitcoin uses developed by the NSA. If you don't think there's a back door here, it's crazy. But I don't mean to get too far offline. I just simply would say to you that when you see assets frozen, it to me speaks of a pathway to central bank digital currencies, where if you fall out of line, they will freeze your assets, and you're locked out if everything is digital. This is one of the reasons to own precious metals. It's one of the few things left in this world that is outside the matrix. And I think when you see acts like this in Canada, it only, I think, crystallizes the viewpoint that keeping your assets in the banking system, in traditional assets, even in cryptocurrencies, nowadays comes with risk. That you don't fall in line. They can seize and stop your ability to transact business. They can take your insurance. They can impound your vehicles. These are unprecedented times, and an unprecedented fascist act by what was once a very democratic, peaceful country, now is somewhat the laughingstock of the world, in my opinion, much like Minneapolis was 2 years ago.
Yeah, and Andy, what you say, I think about. Now, I don't get all crazy and start freaking out, but I definitely am concerned when I have assets in the bank, and like you said, I mean, look at the content that I put out. Look at the people that are in chat right now. They pay attention to even comments in chat, I'm sure. They watch our every move on Facebook. So with that being said, when a tyrant decides that they're going to try to control us, how you just saw how easy it was in Canada for them to shut down a GoFundMe, for them to freeze bank accounts. So any one of us at this point, I feel, could be in a situation where if they deemed us in that same category, um, they could freeze my bank account. How am I gonna pay the power bill? How am I gonna buy groceries if they do that? I got to think outside that box. I have to try to make educated decisions to protect myself and protect my family. And that's why it was important for me to talk to you tonight, because I just feel like people, now is the time with what's going on in Canada to show you kind of a forecast of what can happen here in America, and you do not want to be put in that situation where you have zero options. So tonight's goal, just so everybody knows, is to give you options, to give you information so that you can make wise decisions and put yourself in the category of having options. And that's all tonight's all about. So thanks for joining us, Andy.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's good to be here.
So I don't know what. I guess let's start off like we normally do. We talk about inflation, and I think that's a good place to start, because, like I said in my opening, the Biden administration is already telling us to to buckle up and get ready, and because with the dance that they're doing with Russia right now, he's talking that fuel prices could continue to rise here in America just because of what's going on in Russia. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a smokescreen. You know, we've seen so much money created over the last several years. We talk about all that's been created since COVID started, since 2020, where you have 50% of every dollar ever created in the history of this country being done so in the last 2 years. We go back to 2019 and we talk about the repo market crisis, where $1 trillion a night was being lent into the system to bail out the banks every single night. When it's done with a repo market transaction, which is an overnight lending where the banks will give their treasuries to the Federal Reserve and get money overnight to meet obligations. In the morning, they pay it back. They do this over and over and over again, and it acts as a bailout of the banks without it really going down as an official bailout of the banks. The amount of money that's been pumped into the system is extraordinary, but we're not being told all the money that's being pumped into the system, Mike. And proof of that is a Freedom of Information Act that was just released by the Levy Economic Institute. The banks in 2008, or the Fed rather in 2008, excuse me, told us that they created 750 billion to put into TARP, 750 billion to put into infrastructure. That 1.5 trillion was what created the Tea Party. It was It was a horrifying thought. A Federal Reserve in 2008 with $800 billion balance sheet would increase it by 1.5 trillion on infrastructure and on TARP. And this is what created the Tea Party. At the same time, they told us that as the banks were failing, Bear Stearns and Lehman, that an AIG, the insurance company, that 3 trillion was given to the banks. But through a Freedom of Information Act, we see that the Federal Reserve has actually sealed records originally for 2 years and then for another 10. The Levy Economic Institute challenged the Federal Reserve all the way to the Supreme Court. And through the Freedom of Information Act was able to get finally at the Supreme Court level the truth released that it wasn't $5 trillion that was created between the banks being bailed out, TARP and infrastructure, but it was $29 trillion, where over $2.5 trillion, as an example, went to Citibank, which is co-owners of the New York Fed, and that, in essence, Federal Reserve nationalizing Citibank, but as a part of their own network. There's a little bit of incestuous problems with that type of behavior, but not just the U.S. banks, spreading inflation all over the globe to the United Kingdom, to Japan, to Germany, where we see, and most of Europe, we see inflation not just here in the U.S. at all-time highs, but we see inflation in Germany at the highest it's been since World War II. In Japan, the highest inflation we've seen in at least 3 years, 4 years. In the United Kingdom, the highest inflation in 30 or 40 years. We're exporting our inflation all over the globe. And they've come to a point where through stimulus to the economy, through massive money creation, where the markets have reached an all-time high. Equity markets, real estate markets, bond market, as all of that money was chasing return, pumping up assets, financial assets to all-time highs, where price discovery becomes impossible, where real estate appreciates 40, 50% a year. And we're seeing it in the CPI, of course. The CPI, which has a 7.5% tick this last month, excludes things like energy, food, and housing, the three most inflated asset classes. We see gasoline up over $1 year over year, heating fuel up almost 200% last I looked. Automobiles up, used cars up 40%, food way the heck up. Everything way the heck up. It is not because of supply chain problems. Certainly that exacerbates it when you have such apathy in this country where a whole generation of people believes they don't need to produce anything. All they need to do is trade cryptocurrencies and day trade stocks. And it's worked for a while. You see unemployment numbers very low, yet the labor participation rate as low as it's ever been. No one is working. So you have less stuff being produced and all this money chasing less stuff. That's why if you go and try and buy furniture, you're told 6, 8, 9, 10 months before you get it. That's why you're seeing so many disruptions in consumables. It has something to do with the supply chain disruptions, but what it really has to do with is massive amounts of money creation, which has created a problem. And the problem is in the realization by everyone that inflation is real. All of these years that the Fed has been creating money, they've been able to keep inflation below 2%, so they told us. But a CPI, which has been doctored several times since 1980 to fit an inflationary agenda, tells us at 7.5%. If we go back to the 1980 numbers, courtesy of John Williams and shadowstats.com, we see inflation at 15% right now, real inflation at 15%. Now, the problem is that I would think that inflation is the number one concern of the average American person right now, surpassing the virus. And people are having a very hard time meeting just ends, making them meet, where 65% of the country is living paycheck to paycheck, where over 50% of the country can't write a check for $400 for an emergency. And prices are escalating dramatically. Now, the Federal Reserve is telling us that they're going to get tough on inflation, that they're going to raise interest rates. You have James Bullard from the St. Louis Federal Reserve telling us that he wants a 1%, full 1% increase by July, that they need to increase rates exponentially, really, is what he's basically saying, but in a much more forceful manner, much more aggressively than people are talking about. They have to stop buying assets, which they're still doing currently. They're still buying assets, but they're talking about by March stopping all asset purchases and, in fact, selling off their balance sheet. Now, that's akin to a heroin addict pulling the needle away from them. And I really, truly do believe, based upon some comments I'll share with you in a moment, that this is what they want to do. They want to create massive volatility. And I think they want to do it for a few reasons we'll talk about in a second. But they're telling us they're going to get tough on inflation. Now, if we look at what Fed Chairman Powell says, he says, well, we want to pare down our balance sheet. So, number one, that it only holds U.S. Treasuries. As I mentioned, in 2008, Mike, there was an $800 billion balance sheet of the Fed. And creating 1.5 trillion just in infrastructure and TARP was enough to create a third political party, the Tea Party. Mm-hmm. That's before the money that we were told was used to bail out the banks. Their balance sheet right now is $9 trillion. So instead of letting Mother Nature cleanse the system, take the monopoly board and throw it up in the air and start over, they papered it over. They papered it over by a factor of 11 times increase on their balance sheet in the past 12 years, 13 years. And there's almost $3 trillion in mortgage-backed securities on the balance sheet that they want to shed in an expedited or an expeditious fashion. They want to pare it down quickly, much quicker than they've ever done before. So you're talking about dumping $3 trillion worth of mortgage-backed securities onto the real estate market at a period of time where already a 40 basis increase in interest rates has translated into a 10% decrease in new mortgage applications. Interest rates are up 1% on the 30-year mortgage, from 3% to over 4.25%. Every 1% increase in interest rates translates into a 10% decrease in home values. They're talking about dumping fuel onto a fire and turning it into a massive problem in the real estate market. They're talking about raising rates and selling off their balance sheet when stocks and bonds have become addicted to stimulus and easy money at levels at all-time highs, where if you stop and actually pull away the needle, the market's going to go into convulsions. Now, there's a man named Zoltan Pozar. It's a funny name, but Zoltan used to work for the New York Fed. He's a expert on the repo market. In 2019, he was everywhere talking about the repo market seizing up and the problems that had with the credit markets. But Zoltan came out the other day and said the Fed is in a corner. We all know that. If they raise rates, the markets explode, they implode. If they don't raise rates and they let inflation continue to run, you're talking the evisceration of the dollar on a path to hyperinflation. But Zoltan came out and said, there is so much apathy out there. There are so many people who aren't working, who believe they can trade cryptocurrencies, they can trade stocks. They don't need to be productive. They don't need to produce anything. And they can stay home and make a living. Well, Zoltan came out and said what the Fed needs to do is inject a Volcker moment. What he's talking about is Paul Volcker, who in 1980 was the Fed chairman, who raised interest rates to 19% to stop inflation. So when we talk about if the Fed was really serious about stopping inflation, they would have to raise rates to a minimum of 8%, because you have inflation basically at 8%. You have the federal funds rate at 0. They would have to raise it 800 basis points. 1 basis point is 1% of 1%. 8% would create equilibrium in the economy, where interest rates and inflation, even if we know that the inflation is understated by a factor of 50%, even if we take that for what it's worth, in the economy with the statistics we're being given, 8% inflation against 8% interest rates would create an equilibrium. It would mean you would not have negative real returns on fixed income. But in creating that equilibrium, you would blow up the economy. There's your reset moment. If the Fed really wants to follow through, and the powers that be want to follow through with the Great Reset, they will start by massively raising rates and selling off their balance sheet. And what that will do is create, for the first time in a long time, price discovery. And it'll also create a depression where you will see stocks, bonds, and real estate implode in the face of massively rising interest rates. Now, most people would say they'll never do that. They're not going to blow up the stock market. They're not going to blow up the real estate market. They're not going to blow up the bond market. But if they don't, and they said they're going to get tough on it, then the world sees them for what they are, and that is neutered. And I think the bond market then, which will be much bigger than the Fed's ability to control, will start to sell off. When the bond vigilantes realize that they will choose inflation over normalization, over selling off their balance sheet, they will choose inflation over blowing up the markets. They will start to dump bonds in mass, because why would anyone own a 10-year treasury? Right now, the 10-year treasury pays 1.8% with inflation at 6.5%. So you're guaranteed in that scenario to lose 5% compounding per year for 10 years on a 10-year treasury. Who in their right mind would take negative 5% return? Well, the Fed does. They buy the back end of the bond market to keep interest rates low, to keep our real estate prices high, to force people into speculating in equity markets, to keep those levels high. Maybe a giant corporation like Apple with $2 billion in cash, where are they going to put it? They can buy corporations. They can buy gold. But where are they going to put their money? Maybe they put it into treasuries and they're happy receiving 95% return rather than leaving it in the banks where it can be bailed in, taken, and there's no safety, no insurance, no guarantee. At least you have the guarantee of the federal government for what that's worth when you have billions of dollars to shelter. But the average person who used to have bonds as a portion of their portfolio would be a fool to own it. But who owns the bonds? The pension funds own the bonds. The insurance companies that write your life insurance own the bonds. And if interest rates rise to 8% from 1, you're talking basically a 90% decrease in the bond market. It implodes, absolutely implodes. And at 8% interest rates, if you take the rule of 70 seconds, where you take the interest and you divide it into into 72, it tells you how long before your principal doubles. In 9 years, with U.S. Treasuries at 8%, your money would double. So who would buy stocks trading at all-time high PE ratios in this economy with all of this risk when they could earn 8% return with safety and double their money every 9 years? No one. It will kneecap the stock market. And if a 1% increase in interest rates translates into a 10% decrease in housing prices, if you raise interest rates 8%, you're talking an 80% decrease in home prices. So the only way that they can reach equilibrium is to raise interest rates above the level of inflation. Either they are on the brink of the Great Reset or they're full of shit and they're trying to walk a tightrope. And that tightrope is to talk tough on inflation, but to continue to fool us all by creating copious amounts of money. You know, when I started, Mike, in this industry, they used to publish something called M3. And M3 was the broadest measure of the money supply. But under Bernanke, he stopped publishing it because he cited it as costly and archaic. And then they did M2, which was the next closest measurement of the money supply. They stopped printing that as well. So they're not allowing us to see how much money is being created. They lie and seal records, have to be challenged all the way to the Federal Reserve, to the Supreme Court. They use the overnight lending repo market to bail out banks continuously without actually bailing out the banks officially. And they have painted themselves into a corner. So Zoltan says we need a Volcker moment. We need to create massive volatility in the markets to freak everyone out, to get people back into thinking they need to go to work and be productive, not stay home, not day trade, not trade cryptocurrencies. And one of the things that I found very interesting, he specifically mentioned cryptocurrencies, not just equities. And I think that we are being set up for a great deal of volatility, and it will be blamed on a war with Ukraine or Russia. It'll be blamed on supply chain problems. It'll be blamed on a virus. It'll be blamed on so many things, with the truth of it being that the Fed has obliterated everything that any economic textbook has ever taught us, and they are in uncharted waters. This is the end of the Keynesian experiment, an experiment based upon debt, consumption, spending, and taxation. And we are at the end of the rope. So I guess what I would simply say to you is that if I had to guess what happens, it would be that they have to stay tough on inflation. They have to at least present that they are going to do that. They've told the world they're going to. They've told the world that by March they're going to stop asset purchases. They're still doing it now. They've told the world they're going to sell off their balance sheet and raise rates. But how high can they raise them? If they raise them to 2%, like they're talking, from zero on the federal funds rate, that's spitting in the ocean. You have 2% interest rates with 6 or 7.5% inflation. You're still negative 5.5%. Yeah. But that in and of itself will rattle the shit out of the markets. So the question is, are they serious? Are they really going to get tough on inflation and inject a Volcker moment where they raise rates up to the level of inflation, literally blowing up the 3 pillars of wealth in this country, creating what would be a depression? Or do they do it just enough, like they did in 2019 when they raised the rates just to 3% and the market revolted and threw up, and they had to come back in, lower rates all the way down to zero, and pump trillions of dollars into the system to get the markets back to a level that where we are now. So these are unprecedented times where the tool bag that the Federal Reserve has, the monetary tool bag, is empty. The only thing they can do now in terms of easing would be to go to nominally negative. The world reserve currency going nominally negative. They're already real negative by 5.5%, but you can't have the world reserve currency go nominally negative. So most people, the betting people, would tell you they'll raise rates enough till the markets puke. They'll get rates up to 2%, 2.5%, and then they'll come in and reverse course, pump more money into the system, lower rates again, and we're right back where we started. Just like we were in '08, they'll get the balance sheet jacked right back up again. And, I hate to paint such a dark picture, but I think Zoltan is right. I think they have to inject massive volatility to shock everyone back into being productive, to shock everyone back into realizing that we're painted into a corner. And I think people need to buckle up right now. The next meeting in March is when they're supposed to stop all asset purchases and raise rates. Most people think it'll be 0.5%. Bullard from the St. Louis Fed says it better be 1 by July or it's doing nothing. And he just reiterated his comments the other day. So I don't know, Mike. I think it's a massive topic, one that shouldn't be poo-pooed. And when you hear people say, "Oh, inflation will be normalized by summer, the supply chain will work itself out," it has less to do with the supply chain and more to do with the classic definition of inflation, which is a massive increase in the money supply. Rising prices are not inflation. The CPI rising is not inflation. It is a symptom of an increase in money. More money chasing fewer things creates price inflation. And when you have as much money creation as we've seen in the past 12, 13 years, uh, this ain't over yet. Now, it goes really bad if you see more dumping of dollars globally. And when we're already fighting a massive inflationary wave, you see dollars being dumped globally, whether it be OPEC dumping or the world dumping dollars, because OPEC has now worked out a relationship with Russia for protection. Maybe
Yep.
OPEC issues other currencies to purchase oil, or whatever it may be. The realization by the world that the dollar is in trouble and that inflation is going to be chosen over austerity and tough choices, and that holding dollars is a losing bet, and you see dollars being dumped globally, you'll see hyperinflation. So, I think this is a big deal, and people need not gloss over it. I think it's the biggest deal we've faced in a very long time as a country. How it ends up is anyone's guess, but at some point, Austrian economics tells us that after a massive credit expansion, always will be followed by a credit contraction. And that's basically what we're going to see here. They're going to pull away the needle. And when that happens, what happens to that junky economy? It's going to shake, it's going to freak out, it's going to go into convulsions. And if they're true to their word about a great reset, that's when they step on the neck of the junkie.
Yep.
If not, they come back in and hit them again with another full dose of heroin. And it's a kind of a goofy analogy, but it's very true. It's very symbolic, and I think that's where we are right now as a country. And I think it's going to get real bumpy heading into the second and third quarter.
That's I'm seeing that too. I'm really just being cautious about how I even spend my money. Um, there are things I'd like to have, and I'm holding off, not spending any money right now. Just kind of being cautious, buying a few
Let me
extra
interrupt
things.
you for a second.
Yeah, go
Let me
ahead.
interrupt you for a second, please. And I'm sorry to do so, but this is the problem. You see, everyone's doing that. You're seeing the economy slow down. No one's buying new cars, they're too expensive.
Yeah.
Housing starts are down. People are reining in their discretional spending because it costs more to put food on the table, to drive to work, and heat your house. And so, what is really challenging for the Fed is they are going into a quantitative tightening policy as the economy is slowing. That will exacerbate the slow. That will exacerbate things dramatically. And this is a massive tightrope that they're walking over with fire and sharks mouth wide open underneath that tightrope. And this is unlike anything any of us in this generation have ever experienced. There's always been inflation. I mean, a brand new Corvette in 1973 was $7,000. Now it's 120. There's always been inflation, but now you're seeing it, and now you're
Mhm.
seeing real inflation. And so, if they really do tighten, if they really do try to rein in inflation because people are not spending, and this is an economy that needs spending to keep the engines moving, the wheels moving, you run into what is called stagflation, which is rising prices characterized by little or no economic growth, rising taxes, the worst possible outcome. And if it gets really bad, it turns into hyperstagflation, which is basically the Great Depression meets the printing press. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think we truly are painted into a corner, and it's going to be interesting to see what they try to do, what they come up with in modern monetary theory to get us out of this pickle.
I don't want to be all dark and negative either, but I just want to wake people up and just say, hey, pay attention to what's going on. It's right there in front of your face. You know, I went out last weekend. Went out last weekend with a friend, car shopping, and just trying to check. They need a new vehicle. Um, Not a new vehicle, but they need a different vehicle that's more, um, well, gas efficient. And I'm telling you, man, the used car market right now is way overpriced. Way overpriced. Why is that? Because you can't get a new vehicle. If you order a new vehicle right now, it's going to take 6 months before you even get it. So I'm seeing so many things and connecting so many dots at a rapid pace. The stock market, they're saying, is down right now. I'm not trying to spread fear porn. I'm just trying to say, man, I think we're on a ledge, and there's going to be a big shift one way or another. It's going to be a huge shift, and I just want people to realize there are options for you. I was good. It was good to see some Nikki and a couple other people putting in the chat that they've got everything that they need right now. They've got a little bit of silver in their hand. They've got extra food. They've got extra water. They prepped to their capacity, and they're ready to go. So it's nice to see educated people in the chat saying, "Hey, we've done what we can do, and now it's just time for us to sit back and just be patient and see what happens." And that's all I'm trying to do to the rest of you guys, is just say, "Hey, be a little prepared here. Have a little extra food. Have a little extra water. Keep your gas tanks full. Have a little bit of silver. Do what you got to do to ensure that you and your family can get through a tough time, because how tough is it going to be? I don't know, but I definitely want to make sure. There's some other good comments too about making sure you got seeds and grow a garden. Absolutely. There's all kinds of things that you guys could do to prep and be self-sufficient and not have to spend a bunch of money to do it. So here's the wake-up call, folks. Here's the warning. Andy's putting it out there. I'm putting it out there. The administration is putting it out there, and it's a hard pill to swallow at times thinking about this stuff, but I got to talk about it, because if we're not talking about it, nobody will be talking about it.
So look, there's a fine line, Mike, between pessimism and realism. And, we've lived in a generation where we were entitled to live better than our parents and our grandparents. And it's been that way for a long time. Our lifestyle in many ways has been courtesy of the good graces of our foreign creditors. And I think those days are sadly coming to an end. And I think when you see what's happening in Canada, and you see the ability to clamp down on dissension, I think it dovetails perfectly for these people to usher in the new central bank digital currencies. It kills two birds with one stone. The Federal Reserve chairman was reconfirmed, as we all know, Powell. I thought they were going to confirm Lael.
Uh-oh. We lost you there for a second, Andy. Can you hear me? Your signal got weak all of a sudden. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat there, Lily J. Are you there, Andy? Hello. Uh-oh. I think we
Here.
lost. Okay, you're back. You're back. I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. Anyways, I thought that they were going to confirm Lael Brainerd, and she was nominated as the vice chair of the Federal Reserve. This is a modern monetary theorist whose whole platform is elimination of the commercial banks, one central bank digital currency, where if they need to stimulate the economy, they give people money to their digital wallet. If they need to slow things down, they take money out of the digital wallet. But you can see two birds being killed with one stone. And those birds would be monetary policy enacted by the central bank and the ability to monitor every transaction and to penalize people for not falling in line. It's very frightening to think that we will lose all privacy if we see a central bank digital currency, but I do believe it's coming. And when you see acts like this, it only, I think, intensifies the desire of the powers that be to have a central bank digital currency. So I think the days of privacy and anonymity are quickly going by the wayside.
We had a question, Andy, from Facebook, and the question was, will we need to buy gold coins? Is it necessary for anybody to have to really buy gold? Uh, Obviously, silver is the hot item. Everybody's buying silver. I buy silver. But is there a need for anybody to buy gold? And if so, what would be the benefit of owning some gold?
I think everyone wants to be in gold. Ultimately, it's the place to be, not silver. Gold is. And I know that confuses a lot of people because I think silver is the value of a generation. And I think people should be buying silver right now. Let me clarify what I mean. I've talked with you about this the very first time I came on your show. You don't see many people talking about it ever, but to me, it is incredibly telling. Let me just revisit it for a moment because that's an important question. I'm going to do it the long way. I hope you don't mind, just
Go
so
for it.
that the people who never heard it can get my take on gold. In 2000, from 2012, 2011, we had $1,900 gold. It was its peak at that point. And then went on a 6-year bear run where central banks were selling all their gold and the price of gold fell from 1900 to, I don't know, somewhere around $1,000. And it never made sense to me that the central banks were selling all their gold. In 2017, out of the clear blue, the German Bundesbank said to the United States, give us back our gold that you've been holding.
No, we lost Andy completely. All right, folks. I know he's going to give a long answer on this, but he's going to give you the history of it, and I think we need to pay attention because the way he explains it, it's now that I've heard the explanation a couple of times, it's starting to really make a lot more sense to me than when I first heard it. And just be prepared. I saw some comments in chat about, hey, I can't. They don't sell seeds anymore. I can't find seeds. I believe my dad buys from Seeds for Patriots or Patriot Seeds. That's a good place to buy seeds. I haven't been to the Tractor Supply store yet to see if they have any out for springtime. I'll go there, see if I can't go there here soon, and then report to you guys to see if I see them here in my own hometown. Having seeds gives you the capability of, even if you don't have much room, you can go down and buy some potter plants and have some tomato seeds or just little things that you can do to have something. I think everybody needs to have something. And if you grow good tomatoes, you can trade it for silver. You can trade it for bread. You can trade it. I mean, be multi-dimensional. Don't just focus on one thing. Try to have a portfolio of survival in a manner that no matter what, you can trade or you can um, go work for things. I mean, I'm a tradesman, so I can go, fix electrical issues and businesses and homes, help people that way and earn trade. If somebody had something I needed and they needed electrical work done, I could go do that. So just be a little bit more than one dimensional on this stuff and prepare, because man, I'm telling you, there's no way that we're going to pull out of this with a magic wand. The Biden administration doesn't even have a plan for inflation. If you're not aware of that, I just want you to know, um, Biden administration doesn't have a plan. Their plan is no plan. So with the way things are headed in this direction, in my opinion, it's inevitable. Something will happen. What is it going to be? I don't have that crystal ball. That's why I bring people like Andy on and try to ask the right questions, give him the platform to just put out his information so that you guys can make good decisions on what's best for you and what's best for your family. Tractor Supply has a ton of seeds and starters. Check them out. Thank you for that, Blessed in Ohio. I know my dad and I talked this morning when we were headed up north about the garden that we're going to have this year. Typically for him and mom, they just do he's got a really big garden spot, and for him and mom, they typically only do half the garden. But this year, since I'm back, since I'm home, I told him I'd really like to plant the whole garden this year, and I'll be there to help with the weeding and the watering. And if him and mom take off for the weekend, I can make sure that everything's watered. I think it's going to be very important this year to make sure that we have that resource. And then my challenge for myself come fall time or late summer is I'm going to learn how to can. I'm going to learn from my mom, learn how to can and take those resources and store them in the cellar so that no matter what happens, we can survive. So can grow tomatoes, peppers, in flower pots on your back deck and patio. Thank you for that, Cynthia. Yeah, you don't have to have a big yard or big pasture for a garden. You can, people do those lifted flower bed gardens. All right, Skip, I see that. Absolutely, I'll come out and hang out with you and your wife and learn how to can from Tony as well. You and Tony, any knowledge that I can get, it'd be great. So, yeah, the garden thing is a big deal to me. I've had garden in the past. It's a lot of work, but it really pays off. Copper is way too high. Save your pennies. Okay. That's probably not a bad idea, to be honest with you. Save all your pennies. If they're solid copper and copper's going up, might need to cash them in. I don't know. It's just, I wanted to warn you guys because in the last 24 to 48 hours, I've just been seeing a lot of stuff, a lot of things circulating. And so I asked Denise to reach out to Andy this afternoon to see if he could hop on. Thank you for joining us at such a short notice, Andy. I really appreciate it. He's traveling right now, so we may have lost him. But anyway, I just wanted to throw this out there for you guys and just say, hey, listen, this is what I see going on, and I want to make sure that you guys can protect yourselves. So if you're interested in buying silver, if you don't have any yet, and you're saying, that's the one thing that I don't have. I have a garden. I have extra fuel. I have extra water. I have extra food. I feel like I'm set. I'm in a good place, but I would like to get my hands on a little bit of silver. I'm not saying sell your house or your car. Don't cash out your 401k to go sink it all in silver. I think that's probably not a good plan. I know a lot of people out there will say, well, if you buy a bunch of silver, it's going to hit $5,000 an ounce and you'll be a multimillionaire. That's not my plan. That's not how I look at it. I look at silver as just being another asset for me. And so if you're interested in it, Tracy Q is dropping Andy's link in chat. It's info@milesfranklin.com. Use the code word Liberty Warrior, and Andy and his team will take very good care of you. And you guys can ask questions. They're great about answering questions for you guys. If you're a first time buyer, ask the questions. It's important that you ask the questions. Only purchase what you can afford. Don't overextend yourself. Don't max your credit cards out. Don't be foolish about it. Just make sure that you get enough that you feel comfortable, and that's what I did. I got enough that I feel comfortable with whatever situation comes my way. I'll be able to take that, trade with it, and do whatever I need to do with it. So that's
I
what
am back,
tonight's
by the
about.
way, if you can hear me. I don't know if you
Yep.
can hear me. I don't know what you heard, but I don't know. I don't know
well,
where you lost me.
so
Anyways, I think
you said that you were gonna you're talking about the price of gold, and you said that you were gonna take the long way around because you wanted the new listeners that don't know the background history of it. You were trying to inform them what the background is. So go ahead, Andy. Pick
holy
up
crap,
wherever you choose.
I think I just took the long road talking to myself. All right, let's try this again. So, all right, in if we go back to 2017, we see the central banks start repatriating their gold from the Fed, starting with the German Bundesbank. Prior to that, they were all selling gold. No one understood why Germany wanted all their gold back. Within a month of that happening, the Bank of Austria, Turkey, Poland, Hungary, Dutch National Bank, they all started repatriating their gold too. The following year, 2018, those same European banks bought more gold as a group than they did in the previous 60 years combined. The following year, 2019, those numbers were up 100%. And then the Bank of International Settlements, after letting their buddies front run the decision, reclassified gold as the world's only other tier one reserve asset. Let me say that one more time. Gold is the only other tier one reserve next to US dollars and treasuries. The biggest money in the world views it as riskless. But at a set 80-to-1 ratio between gold and silver, it is 11 times undervalued as to what it's coming out of the ground globally at 7-to-1. The pathway into getting more gold comes from silver. Ultimately, I think you want to be in gold. The biggest money in the world is showing you that. I do believe gold will be pegged to a new world reserve currency. I believe that will be denoted on a distributed ledger. And whether it emanates from the BRICS nations like China or Russia or from the US Federal Reserve, it's coming. And I do think that there's no one will ever trust fiat currencies ever again unless it's pegged to something like gold. And so I think ultimately gold is the place to be, but at a 7-to-1 ratio between gold and silver, mining ratio, when it's priced at 80-to-1, 80-to-1, it's only been that high a few times in human history. It's 4 feet of snow in the Florida Keys in July. And when you realize it's 11 times undervalued in its relation to silver, or in its relation to gold, rather, in terms of how it's coming out of the ground, it's the buying opportunity of a generation. But, I think if you realize it's been valued at about 40-to-1 for 150 years, it's come out of the ground at 16-to-1 for thousands of years. And now because it's depleted, because it's found so close to the surface in a form called epithermal, where the big deposits were found decades ago, it's coming out of the ground at 7-to-1. And it's massively needed in expansion in industry, in digital and green and battery. I think that silver is the buying opportunity of a generation. But when that ratio gets anywhere near its ratio of 7-to-1, like if you woke up tomorrow, Mike, and silver was $240, that would be a fair value dividing 7 by 1920, 240, 250, whatever it is. That is going to be fair value based upon the geologic footprint right now. And so I think if it gets anywhere near 20-to-1 or 30-to-1, you strongly think of trading your silver into gold. What that means is right now it would take roughly 80 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold, but it's coming out of the ground at 7-to-1. It was 16-to-1 for thousands of years. It's averaged 40-to-1 for 150 years. It's way out of whack. If it gets to 7-to-1, you trade 7 ounces of silver for 1 ounce of gold. the world's only other tier one reserve asset that the central banks have been massively buying since 2017. And if it weren't for the fact that COMEX stands by and watches commercial and central banks suppress the price, both gold and silver would be massively higher. And I think that to your listener's question, yeah, ultimately you want to be in gold. Silver is a pathway into getting there, and I think getting a whole heck of a lot more gold when that ratio snaps back. And you know, there's an old saying in statistics: the further away you get from historical averages, the greater the magneticism that pulls you to the center. It's like your favorite baseball player who starts the season batting 800 in the month of April. You could bet anyone in the world that he will finish closer to 300 than to 800, and it's a guaranteed win. The law of averages will pull you back to the center. Well, that's where we are right now at an 80-to-1 ratio. When it's coming out of the ground at 7-to-1, average 40-to-1 for 150 years, and 16-to-1 for thousands of years. It's the buying opportunity of a generation. But ultimately, I think if you were left with one choice down the road, it will be to be in gold.
Okay, thanks for answering that, Andy. Here's the next question. Can Andy comment on gold-backed currency? And if so, what denomination is best?
Well, there really is no gold-backed currency. I mean, you could talk about American Eagles as an example that have a face value or a denomination, $50 being 1 ounce, $5 being 1/10 ounce, 25 being half ounce, and $10 being quarter ounce. But there are no gold-backed currencies. If you're going to buy legal tender gold coins, American Eagles, the 1 ounce gold coin is the best way to accumulate it. You'll get the biggest bang for the buck. If money was no object, you'd buy the 1/10 ounce because they're 10 times more flexible. You have 10 times the utility, but you also will pay a premium in excess of 13 or 14% over the price of gold, roughly 10% more than you will for 1 ounce gold coins. So depends what you're looking to do. The biggest bang for the buck would be in 1 ounce gold American Eagles.
Okay. The next question is, what's JP Morgan's indicted on silver price fixing? Indicted.
Yeah, that's right. They were indicted. And they're addicted to criminal activity, and they were indicted and paid a $920 million fine to the Justice Department for suppressing the price of gold and silver. When people say, "Oh, you're just conspiracy theorists," no, I'm not. J.P. Morgan admitted guilt for suppressing the price, paid $920 million fine, the largest ever, to the Justice Department for doing so. At the same time, they've accumulated 1.2 billion ounces of physical silver and over 40 million ounces of gold. It is the single largest physical position of metal the world's ever seen in their house account. And they paid basically, just under $1 billion fine, yet their metals desk last year, made $1 billion. They make $1 billion a month in profit. That's a slap on the wrist, means nothing to them. So the indictment explains the manipulation. Right now, Bank of America is short 800 million ounces of silver. Idiots. Silver was up 40 cents today and 25 cents yesterday, something like that. That's 65 cents times 800 million that they've lost. You know, they've lost $500 million today and yesterday combined. How long can they do that? That's what put Bear Stearns out of business. Silver went from 9 to 21, put Bear Stearns out of business. Chris Marcus, my friend who runs Arcadia Economics, did an interview with Bart Chilton, who was the former head of the CFTC, the commodity police, the Commodity Future Trading Commission, something to that extent, who admitted to him on an interview, you can Google it, that this is what happened, that JP Morgan took over Bear Stearns' short position. It was a deal brokered by then Fed Chief Paulson and head of the Treasury Paulson and Bernanke, and previous administration. It was admitted. that this all happened. And then he went on to say that J.P. Morgan agreed to pare down their short position because when they took over Bear Stearns short position, they said, "Look, this will put us in violation of position limits when measured against our own short position." And they said, "Well, you have a specific period of time to pare that down and get in line with requirements." Bart Chilton came to his superiors at the end of the 90-day or whatever period and said, in fact, they haven't pared down their position, they've increased it. And his superiors told him to back down. It was a political decision. Bart Chilton died a week after giving Chris Marcus this interview. It was the only interview he ever had given where he had admitted all of this, that there was suppression, that he told his superiors at the CFTC and the Justice Department that they needed to be prosecuted, was told to stand down because it was a political decision. He admitted this. You can Google Bart Chilton, Chris Marcus interview, it'll blow you away. And he died mysteriously a week later. So when you talk about why gold and silver are not behaving the way many of us think it should, it is because gold and silver are much more than just a commodity or wealth. They are the canary in the mine shaft. It is the kryptonite to fiat currency. It exposes, it's like sunlight to a vampire. It exposes the fiat system for what it is. And there's a term in economics called Gibson's paradox, which is the inverse relationship between real interest rates and the price of gold. So if you embark upon a 20-year journey of low interest rates, basically zero interest rates, you have to step on gold and silver because Gibson's paradox says it should be going much higher. In other words, gold and silver do not pay any interest, and that's the knock against it when you can buy interest-bearing instruments, but it beats the hell out of negative 5%. And so when you talk about why gold and silver and why banks like Bank of America or JP Morgan have these wicked short positions and are allowed to do it, usurping law or getting slaps on the wrist, even though they are $1 billion fine, the biggest ever, it is because it is the canary in the gold mine and sheds a light upon the frailty of the US dollar, the US economic system, and the whole fiat establishment. But we're getting to the end of the ability of the leaders to paper it over and appease people and make them look the other way. So look, gold and silver continue to climb kind of like the tortoise, not the hare, and they're moving higher and higher and higher, and they will. And I think ultimately we'll go higher than anyone thinks possible. I mean, look at gold; it's crept up while no one's looking to $1,915. Silver is almost to $25. When I was on your show last, it was just over 22. So yeah, it's up over 10% in since February, in a month. No one really notices it. They're too pissed off that it hasn't gotten to where it should be a long time ago. But we are moving through resistance levels and technical resistance levels and moving averages. We busted through. You could make an argument, especially in the case of gold, that it's broken through all its resistance and has broke through what is called a rising wedge pattern at the end of a cup and handle technical formation. Incredibly bullish. Without being too nerdy, it's really bullish formation in technical analysis. Now, fairness and disclosure, I think technical analysis is horseshit in a manipulated market. But for those traders out there that trade upon it, it has broken out. And gold and silver do follow each other. 90% of their movement is correlated throughout all of history. So JP Morgan paid the fine. The banks suppress the metal. They suppress it. The traders get rich. The banks and the governments do it to keep people stupid and blind and still believing in the value of linen paper with dead presidents on it. And it's losing its appeal globally. And so I think this is why Bank of America and JP Morgan have been able to slide by. But you can only manipulate a market like for an extended period of time by pushing it in the direction it's going. It was easy to hold down gold for decades when no one wanted it, when people were making fortunes in real estate, stocks, and bonds. But those days are coming to an end, and I think trying to hold back a global wave of demand is very dangerous, and I think will end badly for companies like Bank of America, just like it did for Bear Stearns. Bank of America has lost $500 million in the last 2 days on their short position in silver.
Wow. 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 Okay, so let me connect a couple of dots right here, and then I want to jump back to what you just said. Um, Devil Dog puts up JP Morgan is controlled by BlackRock, Vanguard Group, and State Street. Let me connect some dots for you guys. Okay, I created LWN Flip the Switch for a reason. LWNFlipTheSwitch.com, because I created that because of BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, because they also own major shares in Walmart, all the big box stores. I mean, Amazon. The list goes on and on and on.
Who do you think's been buying all the residential real estate? BlackRock.
Correct.
They own all the mortgages. They own all the homes. They own
Yes.
everything.
Yes. And so I made a choice that I wasn't going to give them any more of my money than I absolutely had to. So that's why I created the LW and fliptheswitch.com, because that company right there is an American made company. It's owned and operated right here in America. And so I spend my money with the Patriot owned company. And I quit giving my money to Walmart and BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, all those people. All these dots are connecting right now in front of your face. Right now, tonight, we're telling you guys, man, it's a bad position that America is in, and these are the big players in all of it. JP Morgan, BlackRock, Vanguard. You got to quit spending your money and sending your money to these people. You got to start spending your money at a better place, and just check it out if you guys want to. They can put the link in the chat, but I want to hit on what you just said. The very last phrase there, when you said, now I can't, I lost my train of thought. You were talking about the paper money, the paper. You said Bank of America just lost $500 million. Can you go into a little more detail about that real quick, Andy, please?
Yeah, well, they have they're short 800 million ounces of gold, silver. So an easy way to understand that is every dollar that silver moves down, they make 800 million. Every dollar that silver moves up, they lose 800 million. That's a simplistic way of looking at it. And when you see silver up 65 cents in the past 2 days, it equates to about $500 million that they have lost on their margin account, on their short position. And the idiocy of holding this large of a short position in an asset that's being massively accumulated speaks volumes to the desire to not ignite the fuse of the alternative media the way that groups like Wall Street Silver have done, where globally people have awoken to what silver is. And if you step on it's kind of, how can I say this? I don't even know really how to say it other than to simply say rising gold and silver speak poorly for the world reserve currency and the whole Western fiat system. This is why the banks have been in such a concerted effort to hold it down, to make everyone think that everything is okay. It's just another lie. But yet the biggest money in the world has front run their repositioning into gold and silver, like JP Morgan, with 1.2 billion ounces of silver held off their books and 40 million ounces of gold. Because in the end, the big money who holds gold and silver will make way more money on the upside than they ever did on the down. And in the end, when it becomes obvious that a new system is upon us, they'll let it run. In the end, when it is become obvious that they are trying to reset the system, they'll let it run. And the big money who repositioned into it early before there was confirmation will be enriched for life. And this is why people never succeed, rarely, in investing. It's the herd mentality. There's a whole school of economic thought called wave theory that speaks of mass psychology, the group, the herd. And this is why
people can never buy low and sell high, because buying low is contrary to the herd mentality. Selling high is contrary to the herd mentality. At 65,000 Bitcoin, people were saying it's going to 100,000. And at $400 Bitcoin, people said, you're out of your flipping mind to buy that stuff, right? Well, this is the herd mentality. The courageous investor, the contrarian, bought at 400 and sold at 65,000. I mean, that's a simplistic view, but I would say this: if you're not a contrarian, you're going to be a victim right now. And I do believe that. Look, I've been doing this for 32 years, and for 30 of the 32 years, I never spoke this way. Gold and silver to me have been nothing more than wealth my whole life. I talk about starting a company with my father when I was 19 years old,
Yep.
with only one rule, and that was buying something every 2 weeks. We talked about that.
Yep.
That's the way I look at metal. It's wealth. It's wealth that I hope I never need to use. If I do, I'm damn glad I have it. Not just for an emergency like we're talking about, could be an opportunity when all hell breaks loose and you see interest rates at 8% and real estate trading 80% lower than it is now. Is that realistic? I don't know. You tell me. How much at a 10% mortgage or 11% mortgage with 8% federal funds are you going to see houses trading at? They're going to be 80% lower than they are right now at 3% on a mortgage instead of 10 or 11 or 12. And you can go in and trade your gold or silver to buy that property you wanted, or blue chip stocks trading at single digit price to earnings ratios, paying a fat dividend, or whatever it may be. It's opportunity as well. And if not, you know what, you give it to your kids. But we are so messed up
Yep.
economically. And then you throw into the mix massive divisiveness in this country, mostly between red and blue, and the way people look at the world. If you are more of a liberal versus more of a conservative, conservative slash libertarian versus being really liberal, you know, there's hatred and there's divisiveness, where opinions are no longer respected, where standing up, respected, you know, being respected, respecting the rule of law and doing so in a polite manner, like the truckers did, even though they were blocking international commerce. Um, you know, you're vilified. This is not a good situation to see a recovery spring from. Certainly not a good situation when you see uh, chaos in the markets and in the economy. You know, where you see carjackings up 65%, where you see lootings in stores. What do you think? How long are these stores going to stay open, like Macy's or jewelry stores or stores that we have taken for granted the ability to go in and shop for a present or for clothes or whatever it may be? Ain't gonna be able to do that anymore. Where grocery stores and drugstores are just going to shut and go online because they're being looted, and mob stealing everything out. Who's going to want to let their 17-year-old kid work the night shift at Walgreens, you know, when they're worried about, you know, looting and mobs coming in and taking everything and danger? And I mean, these are bad times. And I think people need to get ready for it, because when things get bad in this economy, they're going to get really bad. And
Yeah.
on a social perspective. And I think that's part of the whole thing here with preparedness. So I hate to sound this way, but most of my career, I never spoke this way. But the mathematics of it speak to problems that are coming. And if you don't realize that, truthfully, whether you buy gold or not, um, if you don't realize that, you're going to be run over by a government who doesn't give a shit about any of us. And they're 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 going to choose, in my opinion, ultimately the destruction of the dollar until they issue a new system. And you will see a reset, whether it be by the dollar imploding or the markets imploding or both. It's the only way. It's the only way to get back to, or to throw the board up in the air and start over. It's the only way. I mean, otherwise you just go down a road where the economy is destroyed. The value of the dollar is destroyed. It is the world reserve currency. It will lose that status, exacerbating the problems. you're going to have to start over. And somehow, some way, maybe this is the beginning. Who knows?
Who knows?
If not, they paper it over and they continue with inflation. And the next time we talk, inflation will be 5 or 6 or 7% higher, making things much, much worse than they already are.
Well, we got some questions rolling in, Andy, and I wanted to hit a
Yeah,
couple
man,
of
I
them
got time.
because I thought they were pretty good questions. I'm gonna give you two, and then I'll give you an opportunity to answer them both. So one is, Andy, do you think silver will continue to rise in value, or do you think it'll go down in value? And the other one, if I could find it, was really good too. Um, would you buy option calls on silver 120 to 160 days out? I think that's a great question too.
I mean, yeah, you can. The thing with options is you only can lose the money that you put up. It's a much better way to do it than buying futures. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people that I respect are buying calls out of the money, 120 days out or what have you. And further out you go, the greater the potential return. But yeah, I wouldn't throw too much at it. A little bit of money, a couple $1,000s, can make you a lot of money if it hits. And in terms of, do I think silver will go higher? I honestly, honest to God, Mike, I believe there is not another investment on the planet that offers the potential that silver does. It is an asset that is massively needed and is depleting. And um, if it weren't for the suppression on COMEX, it should be way higher. If it were 240 bucks an ounce right now, it would be in line with its geologic footprint. And, you know, anything that's digital, anything that is it runs by battery, anything that conducts electricity, solar panels that are now being uh,
Yeah.
implemented all across the globe. The digital world we live in needs silver, and it's disappearing. And the thing about silver is that it's used in such minute amounts that when you use it, it's gone forever. You don't rip it out of a motherboard of a computer or the back of an iPhone for a hundredth of an ounce or whatever it may be. It's not economical. So all of that silver that's been used in industry over the last 70 years and through now is gone. It's in landfills. So yeah, I do think ultimately, if you own enough silver, it will make you wealthy. But in the end, I want people to think of transitioning it to gold when the ratio gets back in line, because that is where I think ultimately you want to be. You keep some silver, but the majority of the wealth as it relates to precious metals, I believe ultimately would be in gold. Now, there are people that would disagree with me on that, like Bick Swear, who I love like a brother. He would disagree with that. And that's what makes this country great, is listening to other people's opinions and making your own. The fact that we no longer do that respectively or respectably with one another is a problem. You never learn, you never grow if you don't hear other people's viewpoints and opinions. But when you
Correct.
see the world central banks accumulate gold and reclassify it as tier one, the only other one, to me, it's obvious. The biggest money in the world will reposition to gold. And silver will certainly give you a pathway to it, will certainly do very well, and should do in terms of its percentage gain better than gold. But ultimately, when the music stops and you're looking for that last chair, I'd look for the gold painted chair myself.
Gotcha. And I'm seeing a lot of good comments in chat too. There's a lot of people in chat that have bought from Miles Franklin, and a lot of questions that I see are getting answered. Like, can I send a wire transfer? Yes. Can there's all kinds of payment methods. As long as Andy's got it in stock, I believe once he receives your payment, whether it's a wire transfer, I think it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, isn't it somewhere around roughly 10 to 14 days once payment is received, as long as you have it in stock, it's in the
It,
mail and they get it?
that's if it's an e-check or a personal check. A wire will
Okay.
ship within 72 hours max or less. An e-check or a personal check will clear your account in a day or two. But due to the overpreponderance of money laundering issues that the banks have, consumer fraud, identity theft, we are mandated by our account to hold those checks for 10 days to eliminate chargebacks and fraud. If people are interested in sending cryptocurrency, which we will run through BitPay, where BitPay will process it and send us dollars immediately, or a wire, there's no risk to us to send it immediately within a day or two or three at the most. If it's a personal check or an e-check, we do give it 10 days to clear, and then ship everything by insured UPS.
Got you. Janice is asking, you already answered the question, but she said her computer crapped out when you were making the statement. So just real quick again, she'd like to know, what is the ratio again for turning silver into gold, because her computer crapped out. And then we have a question from Facebook. Should we get our money out of the bank? I think that's a great question too.
Well, to the first question, when we get near 40 to 1, I start thinking about paring down silver to gold. When I started doing podcasts, and to give you an idea how this will play out, in 2010, I woke up one day and said, holy shit, the ratio is 85 to 1. I looked at a chart, and it was the second time in human history it had gotten that high. That's when I started doing podcasts. I'm like, I got to tell the world this. And I got on podcasts, and I told all my clients, if you own gold, trade it right now to silver. It's never happened. Here's your 4 feet of snow in the Florida Keys in July. Sell your gold, buy silver right now. And in theory, you would have gotten 85 ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of gold. Within 9 months, middle of 2011, you had $50 silver, $1,915 gold, previous peaks for them both. That's 37 to 1. You could have taken 37 ounces of silver and traded it back into 1 ounce of gold that you originally traded 1 ounce for 85 ounces of silver. So now you almost tripled what you started with within 9 months by going back into gold. And I think when you realize that 42 to 1 roughly has been the average for 150 years, for the 5,000 years before that, it was 16 to 1, which is the actual geologic ratio. Until now, that geologic ratio is 7 to 1. Because it's been depleted in nature. It's been depleted through massive mining, and it's found very close to the surface. It's called epithermal. It's really, if you go to a silver mine, you kick over a rock and you'll see silver. It's right there. Big deposits were found a long time ago. And so the fact that it's coming out of the ground at 7 to 1, priced at 80 to 1, anywhere along that line, the minute you get below that 40 to 1 number, you start thinking about slowly paring down. Now, Bix Weir would say we're going to 1 to 1, and maybe silver's worth even more because it's just as scarce, maybe more scarce, above ground than gold. And look, pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. I would say to you, you start paring it down at 40 to 1, and maybe we go much lower. Maybe we get towards the mining ratio of 7 to 1. Where you only trade 7 ounces of silver for 1 ounce of gold. Is it outlandish to say that? Not really. If that's what it's found in nature now, it's not at all. So, but 40 to 1 would be the trigger for me to start looking at it. And believe me, I'll be screaming from the rooftops the minute we get there.
Yeah. Here's a question from me.
Wait, what was that? What was that second question? I forgot. I didn't answer the second one. The second one, I don't remember what it was. You asked me 2 questions there.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. If Andy didn't answer it, you can throw it back in chat. I'll try to grab it again, because here's my question that I have. Jones says, I bought the Silver Eagles, beautiful coins. Yeah, the Silver Eagles are beautiful. Let's just say people say, you know what, I'm good where I'm at. I'm going to stay right where I'm at, and then all of a sudden, things happen. And the economy tanks, and silver and gold both go up, and now they kind of panic a little bit and say, I really think I should buy some now, and maybe silver's at $50 an ounce. Are there still really good options on the table once things start to hit a landslide type of scenario, and the price of silver maybe doubles in a week's time? Is that still a good time to buy? I mean, that's just my question, because I find myself hesitating at times and then wish I had.
Well, Mike, people like you and I are the pimple on the elephant's ass, and that's the That's who I've been talking to
Oh,
for 25 years. When the elephant starts buying gold and silver, the answer is no. I've been saying forever publicly that the lack of supply will define this market. If you realize that gold and silver represent such a minute amount of market share in comparison to the amount of money that's out there, say in the stock or the bond market, if $50 silver comes with public realization that things are getting really bad, I mean, let's what does $50 silver represent? What does $3,000 gold represent? Does that represent a dollar that's being destroyed and everyone runs to it? Overnight, things disappear. You know, in 2008, price of gold went from 1,000 to 700, and silver from 21 to 9 in a period of a week. Seemed like everyone was selling everything, right? They fell by 60% in silver, 30% in gold in a week. But the truth was, no one sold anything. It was all done on COMEX, was manipulated down. And when that happened, the whole second half of 2008, you couldn't find anything anywhere. I thought we were going out of business. The U.S. Mint was shut down 8 times in 08. The Canadian and the Austrian Mint were working 3 8-hour shifts, 24 hours a day. They were 12 weeks back ordered. The Perth Mint in Australia stopped taking all orders in August of that year, and the Rand Mint in South Africa, for the first time in 60-year lifespan of the mint, ran out of product, shut down. Every refinery across the globe had nothing to sell. And the U.S. Mint, for which I'm one of 24 authorized resellers in the world, said, we'll call you when you can place an order. And this is as the price was falling. And what had happened was the price fell so much that everyone gobbled up everything that was out there. There was nothing to be found. And here again, this wasn't the mainstream public. This was just the aware contrarian. You start to get, you know, one more comment. My friend Rick Rule often talks about the allocation of metal to the U.S. portfolio is 0.5%. From Joe Sixpack to the Harvard Endowment Fund, 0.5%. In 1980, it was 8%, with $800 gold and $50 silver. The average of the last 40 years between 0.5% and 8% is 2.5%. If you saw 2.5% allocation of metals to people's portfolio, it's a 5-fold increase in demand in a market that cannot contain it. So, yeah, you see $50 silver in and of itself, there may be value, but $50 silver with panic in the streets and realization that financial assets are tanking, you aren't going to find anything probably even before that. So that's why I tell people to buy low, look at it as wealth. You know, you don't come home and say, shit, my house didn't burn down. Why did I pay my fire insurance premium this week, my homeowner's premium? This is something you be careful what you wish for. To see really high gold and silver may come with a story that people don't want to hear.
Amen.
So
that's a good
yeah,
point.
I think the probability this time around is that it won't be the pimple on the elephant's ass that we're selling to. It'll be the elephant itself that'll be running through the store trying to get as much as it can.
Here's the question that we were looking for, Andy. The question was, I want to know if I should pull my money out of the bank. I'm not a financial advisor or any of that stuff, so I've got my opinion on it, but I think they want to hear yours.
Well, in 2008, the banks, the law was passed to bail in instead of bail out. They made bailing out illegal. Taxpayers can't bail out the banks anymore. The banks will bail in just like they do in bankruptcy protection, where in bankruptcy proceeding, I'll give you an example. Hannes Tolving. This was the biggest name in precious metals a few years ago. Guy was outselling everyone in the industry. It pissed me off so much because everyone say, why can't you compete with Tolving? And Tolving would sell things at my cost, and I'm buying from the same people he is. And he'd throw in free overnight shipping, and I'd tell everyone, you're getting scammed. Something's not right here. It just ain't right. And he would sell $600 million a year in sales when we were doing under $100 million. And Well, he stole $50 million and he's in prison right now, was running a Ponzi scheme. But when he went bankrupt, 6 months back from that, anyone who had received gold or money had to send it back to the bankruptcy proceedings or be in violation of federal bankruptcy law. That's basically a bail-in, where you bail in from within. In the case of the banks, they made it law that they will bail in. If a bank like Bank of America went bankrupt, I saw someone ask that question, they would bail in. Anything you have over the FDIC limit, just like they did in Cyprus, they will take it and you will be a general creditor to the bank, where it will be pro rata bailing in the bank to make the bank whole. There was a law passed a few months ago, or maybe last year, where to ease the stress on the banks, they didn't have to maintain any reserve requirements. It's normally like 5 or 8%, some stupid amount, where if more than 8% of the depositors said, give me my cash in cash, they couldn't do it. Now they don't have any. So there's no cushion. There's bail-in legislation. People say, well, I'm in a money market. At the same time that happened, the bail-ins, they enacted gating legislation, which means if the shit hits the fan, they will gate the money markets. Because in '08, a lot of the money markets were invested in Lehman Brothers. And when Lehman went upside down, the money markets started to go upside down and everyone started running out. It's called breaking the buck, meaning you don't even get what you put into the money market back. They put gating legislations in, meaning you're stuck, you're locked in, you can't leave. So between bail-ins, gating, getting paid a fraction of a percent when 7.5% inflation is eroding away the purchasing power, when they don't even have reserves, when you go there and they ask you, what are you doing with your money, and then file a suspicious activity report form on you if you tell them you're a patriot and you want cash at home, I don't know. What would you do? I would leave enough money in the bank to pay my bills, and I would leave no more than that I had to. Now, look, you know, I'm not the poster child for Finance 101, and I hate being the buzzkill at the party. I really do, because that's not who I am or what I think metals ultimately is about. But when you realize that we're in a system that's gone mad, where people leave their money with an institution that, if you look at what the amount of fines the big banks have paid over the past decade, billions and billions and billions for being deceitful, for rigging LIBOR, for rigging the Forex market, for rigging the precious metals market. Look at Wells Fargo creating all of those accounts when no one even opened them. Doing all of this horrible stuff, we trust them with our money. They pay us nothing in return. And there's risks involved to bail-ins and gating. Yeah, I think leaving your money in a bank is, if you really thought about it, the risks outweigh the benefit and the lack of reward and the benefit. Remember, when I started in this industry in 1989, interest rates were 9%. You leave your money in a savings account earning 9%? Yeah, sure. You leave it in a savings account earning 1/4%? Remember the rule of 70 seconds. You take the interest rate divided into 72, tells you when your principal doubles. In a 9% savings account or money market, you double in 8 years. At 1/4%, you double in 300 years. So is it worth it? No, it ain't. So I would say, look, have cash, 5, 10, 15,000 and 5, 10 and $20 bills, whatever you can afford, 2,000, 1,000, whatever it is, in small bills. Take money out of the ATMs every week. Take $500 out of every paycheck in $20 bills, in tens and fives, not big bills, small. You're already seeing here in Florida, a lot of establishments don't even want hundreds anymore. And so you have that utility, because when things go upside down for a minute, cash will be king.
48 hours or so.
Yeah, but
first 48 hours, cash is king until they realize that money ain't worth anything.
And that's, and that's my honest opinion, is you have to have money in the bank to pay your bills. But short of that, I say to all of you out there listening, and I ain't talking my book, you come back to me and show me a better place to put your money than gold and silver right now, where risk and return meets some sort of equilibrium where you're putting it into an asset class that has outlived 2 world wars, German hyperinflation, the Great Depression, and every pandemic, and still is value, factored against all of these horrible laws and regulations that have been voted in by our leaders regarding banking. Yeah, I would say mitigate your exposure to the banking system is a hell of an idea.
So here's an answer to Blessed Ohio in Ohio. This is a Buffalo round. This is what I get from Miles Franklin. And I can tell you right now, everything they deal with is physical. So I don't buy anything that's paper. I only buy physical gold and silver. Buying paper is buying paper. And when things go bad, all that's going to be worth is just ass white. That's all that is. Andy, we had a question way early in the show about do you think that the government will come in and try to take people's gold and silver once they've established a good portfolio? And is there a safe place to put it is my question to that point. I know where I put my silver, but is there a safe place for them so that the government can't take?
I don't think they will. I think they'll take the ETFs instead. You have SLV, which is the second or third largest stockpile of silver in the world, GLD, the third or fourth largest stockpile of gold, held by the commercial banks that manipulate the price, pushed by the brokers who talk people out of buying physical gold. Because when I started in this industry, they were called stockbrokers. They made 1% of every trade. Now they're money managers, which if you have ever become one, if you're a certified financial planner, it takes 3 years worth of tests. That's real. But a money manager, like you see it in Edward Jones or any of these other places, they passed a test on ethics, which was the easiest test I've ever taken in my life. And now you're a money manager, and they make money by what's under management. So they will say, don't buy gold and silver, buy an ETF when you can keep it under management here. Well, you have massive pools held by JP Morgan as the administrator of SLV. Think about that shit. They pay a $920 million fine for suppressing the metals market, yet are still being allowed to be the administrator of the largest silver trust in the world. HSBC Bank, who paid hundreds of millions in fines for laundering cartel cocaine money, they're the administrator of GLD. They could come in on a Friday night, take those two accounts, be sitting on the fourth largest stockpile of gold and the second largest stockpile of silver in the world without breaking laws or infringing liberties. In 1933, when Roosevelt confiscated gold, it was money. Your grandparents held it as money. It was a currency. It was in everyone's possession. So confiscating it in a world where patriotism was real was a much easier deal. And the truth be told, not many people actually even turned it in. It was mostly, they got a little bit, but they just took everything from the banks and made it illegal to own it. I don't think they'll do that now. A country that tries to pretend it's still the world reserve currency would be in very big trouble if they were to enact Venezuelan style nationalization of assets. I would think that very, very quickly you would see a massive dumping of dollars and treasuries where it would create the law of unintended consequences. So no, I don't think that they will confiscate gold and silver. I think that would be a very foolish decision when, as I just said before, 0.5% of this country owns any to begin with. You could argue just by suppression, they've confiscated gold by allowing the big money to accumulate it when no one wanted it. So for the very, very small amount that they would actually get, I would think that if our creditors feared that type of nationalization of assets, it would be game over in this country. I don't think it'll happen. And I saw someone else ask a question about, do you think we'll go back to an oil-backed dollar? Remember, that is what we've been since 1974. We've been a currency called the petrodollar, not backed by oil, but denominated in dollars globally is oil, and that is from the protection of the Saudi kingdom. I think we are very close to losing that privilege based upon the relationship with Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Nigeria, where for 50 years we have been the sole protector of the Saudi kingdom, and for that protection and selling of munitions, they value oil globally in dollars. Well, those days might be coming to an end. I think we're further away from that, perhaps, than we've ever been in the last 50 years, or potentially further away from it. So I think that gold is the ultimate form of money. It meets the definitions of money. And I think it will be pegged to a new system. That would be my guess. If I had a gun to my head, I would say it'd be when the music stops, gold will be pegged to the new system, using a distributed ledger to show the veracity of the gold being held there, maybe held in Swiss vaults or wherever that's held and audited by, Big Three accounting or whatever it is. It's going to be gold, if I had to guess, and nothing else. But I don't think they're going to confiscate. I think it would create far too many problems globally, and far too little in return. Look, there's only been a few $1 trillion of gold mined since Genesis, the beginning of time. And, they've created 12 trillion in money in the last 2 years. So what does a few $100 billion in gold do for them? Or just a few 20 billion that they confiscate from the public? I mean, it would amount to nothing and create a massive, massive problem, I think, in terms of unintended consequences.
Well, Andy, I appreciate your time tonight. I got 2 final questions, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
The first question
Pleasure's been
is,
mine, Mike. I really like you and your listeners. You're a good man, and I love what you stand for. Honestly, I do. I think it's very cool that you have the courage to do what you do, and I'm all with you.
Well, I appreciate that, Andy. We love you showing up and just trying to educate the audience and allow them the opportunity to ask questions, because I never knew any of this until I met you either, and so you've really brought me a long way, and I'm still learning. Every time you come on the show, I try to learn something and take something away from this. If I can't get the silver, I at least want knowledge. So the question that I saw, which I thought was a very interesting question, was, is Fort Knox empty? Do you have any idea about that?
It hasn't been audited since 1953, and it's supposed to be our gold. Why the hell not? Why do they give Ron Paul so much shit when he asked to vote to audit the Fort Knox gold? So who knows? If I had to guess, I would say no. There is no gold there. That it is empty. It is the gold that they have used and sold into the marketplace over the last 20 years to suppress the price. So who knows? But just by working backwards, if it is the people's gold, why not allow an auditing of the Fort Knox? And when Ron Paul voted for it, it was or raised it for a vote, it was voted down.
Okay, thank you for the answer. I see another really good question, so I'm going to sneak one more in real quick. The question is, Andy, where do you put your money? I had one house burned down. My husband's coin collection is gone. Where do you put it?
Well, I mean, because I'm the owner of a precious metals company that does half a dozen interviews a week, I can't really have it at home. I'm too much of a target. And that's another reason I left Minnesota. I didn't feel safe there anymore. And so I use Brinks facilities. We have a Brinks program. I have them in various facilities around North America, and also the Dakota Depository in Fargo, North Dakota. I have a very little bit I keep at home, but you can bury it in your backyard and be a midnight gardener. You can go to Home Depot and get some empty 1-gallon paint cans and splash it on the outside of the cans, and put it in the basement with your other half-empty paint cans. Fill it with gold and silver. You can get creative, Mike, and I think you should get creative when you talk about precious metals. But whatever you do choose, I would say that it's better than a safe deposit box. It's better than an ETF, and I think, in essence, you have a greater likelihood of being ripped off by the system than you do by an intruder knowing that you have gold and silver hidden in your house.
You know, they snuck in another really good question, and I'm gonna have to ask this one too before I get to my final one. What the question is, why can't we buy silver and gold online at Miles Franklin? I know you've answered this question plenty of times, Andy, but I think it'd be great if we explain it.
You will be able to soon. I have given in. We are building a new site right now. The back end of it is already done. We have, for Canadian citizens, friends in Canada that we have helped promote their site. We have a very close relationship, and the website is mfbullion.ca, where you can. Here in the States, we're a couple months away from being able to do it. I have resisted it for a very long time. I believe owning precious metals belongs more off of the digital platforms, and but I realize the world is moving in this direction, and I have to give in. So we will allow online purchasing here very soon. Within the next couple of months, it should be done. We had gone down a road of building a site several months ago and had to stop and reverse course because of the back end challenges of connecting supply and with the website so that you don't sell things that you don't have. And it's proven to be a big challenge, but suffice it to say, we will be doing that. But like I say to people, yeah, it's a pain in the butt. It's not as easy as clicking buy, but we will make sure that your listeners get the best price, period, in the United States. So give us a try, and we'll make sure that it's worth it. And you could argue where we're going, relationships are going to be important. So, you know, you're not just a number on an online platform. We build relationships. But with all of that being said, Mike, before fall, you'll be able to buy online all you want with Miles Franklin.
That's awesome, and we're so glad that you're accommodating those people that enjoy buying online. So, like you said, folks, if you're interested in buying online, it's a couple of months out. I'll definitely have Andy back on when that thing when he launches that, and he can come on here, and we'll give him an opportunity to let us know when that launch is and talk about it, and that'd be a great time. So. The last question is my question. What are the deals this week for Miles Franklin? Because I know that you run some deals. I try to pay attention to them when I can. I think it's really great. And it also tells people what the spot price is and what you charge above spot price. Because there's a lot of people out there that want you to pay, $250 to sign up for something and you get a $30 coin. I like the fact that Miles Franklin is, here's your spot price. This is the spot price, and this is what we charge you above spot, and it doesn't get any clearer than that.
Yeah, we've been selling a lot of 10-ounce silver bars and kilo bars. The kilo bar from the Valcambi Mint in Switzerland, one of my favorite. They are $2 and I want to say $2.85 or so over the price of silver. I know that next week's special are the 2022 Kangaroos. Those are $3.99 over. Those are from Australia. Those are fantastic. But we have the mainstays, the 1 ounce Buffalo Rounds at $3.25 over, the 10 ounce at $2.99 over, 10 ounce bars, the kilo at $3.75 or $3.85 over. I'm a U.S. Mint distributor. I have 55,000 Silver Eagles in stock. I haven't really pushed them for a long time now because the premiums are so high at about $8.75 over, the highest they've really been in years. We have supply, and in terms of specials, when you call, we'll tell you what we were running last week. If we still have it, we'll offer it, like the 10 ounce bars. We were doing some 10 ounce Asahi bars at $2.69 over, the best price in the country. I don't know if we have any of those left. The Valcambi kilo bars are another good one. The Buffalo Rounds are another good one.
I love the Buffalo Rounds.
Yep, they are. They're the most the best way to buy 1 ounce pieces with the best value. But if you're looking for a government issued coin, the kangaroo from Australia, the purest silver coin in the world, is what we are offering. And it's the first time I've offered a sovereign coin in about 2 months.
Ooh. Oh man, I might have to get my hands on some of the kangaroos. Okay, I'm gonna sneak one more in. Does he have a 2022 silver dollar? Is
Yeah,
there
that's
one
the
available?
American Silver Eagle. There
Okay.
is. We do have
Okay.
those. And they are available and in stock. And look, they're amazing. They're really sweet. You could argue the premium is a little too high to make it worth it, honestly, because the difference between a Kangaroo, Britannia, Krugerrand, Philharmonic, or Maple Leaf in relation to the American Eagle has been 60 to 75 cents my whole career, not $6 or $7 like it is now. So we do have them. Since 2019 or 2020, the premiums have been at least this high or higher on American Eagles. Have never come back. Just to give people an understanding of how premium changes, real quick, and then I'll let you run. If you would have bought Silver Eagles from me as a U.S. Mint authorized reseller, one of only 24 in the world, in November of 2019, before everyone's life was turned upside down, you would have paid $329 over spot typically, and I would have bought them back for $265 over. You got a 65-cent spread roughly for my whole career, regardless of what the price of silver was. That's what the mint basically charged me as a distributor. So you buy those Silver Eagles for me last Thanksgiving or 2 Thanksgivings ago, before anyone knew what was coming. 4 months later in April, or 5 months later in April, I would have paid you $11 over the price of silver to buy back as many as you would sell me. You would have paid over 12 to buy them anywhere. And so premium is a function of supply and demand. And even though the Eagle premium is at $8 or $8.75 roughly, it's the lowest it's been in 2 years. Has not gone below this, but it's still almost 3 times higher than it's been my whole career. Is this the new reality? This is what I was talking about when you said if it goes to 50 where there'll be value. Don't know, because you could argue that the mint, who can't keep up with demand, even at 875, that they're producing over 1 million a month. People are buying them. And, you know, that goes to show the increased demand, or maybe it's just what silver should be. Maybe silver should be priced at 32 or 33 an ounce, not the 24 that it is, or almost 25. That's what the premium show. But yes, I do have the American Eagles in stock.
Awesome. Well, Andy, I really do appreciate you hopping on with us tonight. It's such a short notice. Denise wanted me to also thank you for agreeing to come on at such a short notice. It was just a lot going on in the last 24 hours. I thought, man, we really need to talk to Andy and get his perspective of things. And we always do appreciate it. So thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you here. So
it's a pleasure to be associated with a person like yourself, a patriot, which I've always fancied myself as. And it's tough being a patriot these days, tougher than it's ever been in this crazy world. But I am certainly honored to be here. I will always, as I promised you, I'm just a phone call away. I know she called me this morning, and I had to juggle around a schedule, and I'm nowhere near a computer, so doing this from my cell phone. But I enjoy our conversations, and I'm always happy to come back.
All right. We'll have you back here real soon, Andy. Take care. God bless. Have a great night. Folks, check us out, libertywarriornation.com. I believe up in the more button is also the link to Miles Franklin. So if you guys don't get it out of chat and you can't find it, just go to libertywarriornation.com, and it should be in the top left-hand corner under the more link, or the action link, I think it's called.
Really important, Mike, too. Really, really, really important. When they send that email to info@Miles Franklin, make sure you put Liberty Warrior Nation in the subject line. We will make sure that your listeners are treated with extra special care and be given the very best price, and a portion of every sale we will dedicate back to your endeavors so that you can continue to do what you're doing. And we're honored to be a very small part of it. But
it's real important that they put that in there so that we know that they're one of the Liberty Warrior members.
Absolutely. All right, folks, you heard it. You heard it from Andy. Make sure that you fill out that application right. And we're going to be back tomorrow evening for Ladies of Liberty. Don't miss it. Tammy, the Hammer Nation, Mary Kay, Scad Warrior 2. Come support the ladies. They have last week's show, Angels and Demons. It was a great show. If you guys didn't catch it, it's still up. Check it out. It was an awesome show. I don't know what they're bringing this week, but I'll be watching. So love y'all.
You tell the ladies I'm happy to. You tell the ladies I'm happy to come on and chat with them anytime too. If they're
okay, listening. We'll do. All right.
All right,
y'all,
brother. All the best to you. See you, Mike.
Yep. We'll see you. All right, folks. Ladies of Liberty tomorrow evening, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain Time, right here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We got so much going on, man. I tell you what, Denise. She is working her butt off for you guys. She's got some very unique shows scheduled coming up. So please pay attention because there are going to be some unique shows. And then there's also going to be some favorites coming back that I don't know, man. She's telling me they're bringing it, and it's going to be some action-packed, intelligent information. I can't say much more than that. I cannot say much more than that. I'm just going to tell you in the coming weeks here at LWN, there's going to be some very unique, interesting shows, some special guests that have been on before that's bringing even more. So don't miss it. And don't miss Ladies of Liberty tomorrow evening, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain Time. All right. God bless. Love you all. Have a great evening.
Hoping for a sincere performance, but open to finding the moment, to finding out where I'm headed now. Looking for a sign of disaster, so I can make it there faster. I'm weighing the consequences out. I can see in all directions. It's all open to interpretation, but I see colors that are breaking from the other side, the other side. When I make mountains out of summer trails, when I buckle under all the details, I'll keep going till I make it to the other side, the other side. Can you tell me the secret of how you can take it or leave it? How you can blend in with the crowd? I'm so scared, so damn afraid to look. I'm so sick of talking. I'm wearing the words out, words out. I can see in all directions. It's all open to interpretation, but I see colors that are breaking from the other side, the other side. When I make mountains out of summer trails, when I buckle under all the details, I'll keep to get me